Welcome back. Well, I started doing an unboxing yesterday from Colleen Staver, and we did 2 boxes of goodies, and there were a total of 4. So today we are tackling the next 2 boxes. Finish it all up. So when we come back, we will get right into this. Well, today's unboxing was a lot easier, mostly because a bad cat decided against helping. I gave him treats, parked him in the other room, gave him the box I had pulled aside for him yesterday, let him play in that, and snuck off and did this behind his back. So, no cat in the middle of the bed poking at the china. And I know a lot of you just love seeing Audie. I love seeing Audie too, to be honest with you. I adore that crazy little cat. But I would just as soon not see him in the middle of a pile of antique china. So he's over here. It's about 3 feet away, middle of the floor, food coma because of all the goodies I fed him. And we'll see if he ends up making an appearance. I doubt he will. He tends to pass out cold when he's had a tummy full of treats. So let's get right to those boxes. More boxes. And of course, we are back here in the bedroom because once again, Audie is prowling around looking for mischief to get into. So, as I said before, I'd much rather have him do it on the bed where at least he is safe than to do this somewhere else where he is likely to get hurt and, of course, knock things on the floor. 2 more boxes. So, we'll get these opened up and we'll start taking a look. Oh, before I finish opening this one, notice there's a nice little dip in here. Yeah, guess who's been sleeping on this box? Okay, we've got a lot of goodies in here, and let's start with this. This is just a really sweet little saucer. It's about demitasse size. If there is a mark on it, it's covered by what's left of the tag. Nevertheless, very pretty little piece. My best guess on this is going to be German. It's very similar to a lot of pieces I've seen from Germany, so we're going to stick with that until I eventually get a chance to remove that tag, and then we'll know for sure. This is great. This is a wonderful little Japan Aladdin's lamp style incense burner. I'm trying to keep that lid on. And notice the lid has a little sort of food dog. That is not a Japanese motif, but obviously they've adopted it. Really nice gilding on this. This is a very interesting piece. I'm going to guess this is probably from the 60s or 70s, when stick incense was quite a thing. But again, that's just a guess. Nice little piece, very decorative. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I actually do burn incense, something I never did when I was younger, but I do now. I find I just really enjoy the fragrance. This one, unmarked, we had a tag on us at one point. I don't know. The thing is, I would be willing to bet it's Asian, but if I had to guess, I would say it's very likely to be Korean. Although Korean pottery especially little pieces like this, are rarely seen. So, I don't know. I suppose, realistically speaking, we are probably looking at a Japan import piece made in a Korean style. Now, I love Korean pottery. It's wonderful. You don't see much of it. It's beautiful. It's simple. So this is a nice little piece. Very small, a bud vase, or I'm not sure what you would put in there. You could certainly put something other than a flower in here. Very sweet little piece. Now here we have a Japanese lusterware mustard pot. We've got the little lid. Here's our lid. And it's got the cutout for the spoon. And fortunately, I collected a number of small mustard spoons over the years so that I have something that will work for this. I probably have a lot of somethings that will work for this in terms of a spoon. I like these little buggers because you can use them for all kinds of things. I do not put mustard in mine, but small condiments like wasabi or horseradish, anything you wouldn't use in abundance, something that you would use in small amounts. Perfect for little pots like this. So let me set that aside. This is a very pretty Japan piece. Gorgeous crazing. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'm going to try to get in closer. Can you see the crazing on that? That is really valued in Chinese porcelain, not so much in Japanese porcelain. The Chinese actually developed techniques for firing pieces like this so they would craze as soon as they came out of the kiln. That's how valuable this crazing is to them. So I would say this is lovely. It's got a really nice design. Just a great little ginger jar vase. And by the way, I don't think it was ever actually a ginger jar. You can usually tell if they had a lid. And in general, if they have a bit of decoration on the rim, it probably means it was intended to be a vase and not a ginger jar. So, very, very nice piece. These are Austrian, and again, let me see if I can get in to show you this wonderful little Art Deco design. Just beautiful, hand-painted, obviously. Very, very Art Deco. And we have a stack of 6 of them here. Sweet pieces, saucers, no cups, but hey, Art Deco is hot. People like it regardless. And this is just a darling little Bavarian plate, probably about a salad plate size, I'm going to say. Not quite large enough to be a dinner plate, but definitely too big to be a bread and butter. Nice piece, thick, serviceable. This was not fine china. This was probably somebody's everyday dishes. So, very pretty. Let's take a look at that. And finally, the piece that was on the bottom. So let's get in here so we can see this. We have little reticulated panels. I'll show you can clearly see it on the back side. This is from Yukago. Yukago is one of the many Japanese import companies that sprang up in the wake of the Second World War. Now, this is an occupied Japan piece, so we have a very narrow window. That's one of the things that makes occupied Japan pieces very collectible. 7 years, and that's it. So in terms of porcelain, We have very precise dating. Yukago, their stuff was really nicely done, as you can see. I mean, look at this. And it was very, very popular as a Japanese import brand in terms of these companies that were exporting from Japan into the US. Nice, nice piece. And we've got a little string on the back, so it was intended as a wall plate. Many of these were intended as wall plates and end up taking on different uses, because obviously you could use that as any kind of plate you wanted. Frankly, if it were me, I don't know if I would put it on the wall. I expect I would simply put a plate like this, you know, on a dresser or a console table and let it hold the change or the keys. I think that's what I would do with it. But, you know, that's me. Hand shaking here. Nice, nice piece. So now let's move on to box number 2. Well, it looks like this was the serious goodie box. Nippon. Gorgeous. This is a cherry blossom design. Notice that the vase is ribbed, but otherwise it is a classic Nippon urn pattern. Good sized here. What are we looking at? 7 inches, I'm guessing. Beautiful, beautiful piece. And of course, we're looking at an antique. This is something that is probably easily over 100 years old. Gorgeous. We're not done yet. Again, Nippon. And of course, we have the classic, what I call the Noritake pattern. Lake, tree, little shack. Beautiful. This is in gorgeous condition. The gilding is perfect. And given the fact that the Nippon mark has not appeared on Japanese china for over 100 years, that's really saying something. This was probably never used. This was probably displayed somewhere. Let me take the lid off. And here is our matching sugar bowl. And of course, this would be the front because of the shack. See, we've just got trees and lake over here. And we need that little shack. Again, perfect gilding. Just really, no, wait, we've got a little bit of wear here. That's outstanding for 100 years old. It really is. It's absolutely gorgeous. That is an incredible set. And this is modern. And when I say modern, I mean simply not antique. It's probably vintage. Lovely Chinese teapot. Beautiful design. An unusual design for older Chinese pieces, but still very nice. There's something about this that just reminds me of the Pennsylvania Dutch art. Probably the color combinations. Really, really sweet teapot. And perfectly usable as a teapot. Here we have a Chinese piece. Again, vintage, not antique. It's been around for a while, though. I can tell from the bottom here. And at some point, there had been little, I'm assuming little sticky bits here. And that is probably to keep it on the little stand. And let's see, I'm going to set it there. So that's what it would look like roughly, sitting on its little stand. Just a little cash pot. These are just really great pieces. They're just wonderful. All right, we're going to come back in a minute. We're just going to take a look at what I think are the really nice pieces out of these two boxes, and I'll be back with that for you in a minute. Well, I would have to say that the Occupied Japan plate from the Yukago Company definitely ranks as one of the hot treasures in these two boxes. Certainly, this terrific Nippon set, Sugar and Creamer, that's just gorgeous. And as I say, the condition is fantastic. And the Nippon vase. Primarily, that's because these three items, this set and this vase, are antiques. We're looking at probably 19th, very, very early 20th century. I'm thinking early 20th for these, and probably 19th for this one. And of course, this one is immediately post World War II. Again, occupied Japan, we always know the dates we're talking, and that's just 1945 to 1952. So we have a very narrow window for this piece. Gorgeous. Now, everything is wonderful. And quite frankly, it's very hard to pick out the really great pieces here. But because these do stand out a little, I would have to say, yeah, these are the gems for this unboxing. All right, so we will see you in a moment. Well, there were some terrific pieces in these two boxes, just as there were in the two boxes that we did yesterday. Some very lovely Nippon pieces, a really pretty Occupied Japan piece, and some of the sort of generic made in Japan pieces. So I thought what I would do is seize the opportunity to talk about Japanese import porcelain. I've talked about this before, but it's probably been at least a year since I've gone off on one of my Japanese import porcelain diatribes. So maybe we're about due. At the end of the war, the Japanese economy was on the verge of collapse. What we know now, which is something most of us did not know at the time, was before the end of the war, before the war with Japan, the Second World War, actually came to an end, the Japanese government did not have the means to feed their population. They were on the brink of starvation. Their level of commitment to the war effort was beyond their ability to keep it. Let's just put it that way. So their economy was in an absolute shambles. And the United States government made a strong commitment to help them rebuild, to revitalize their economy. This was not a controversial decision. You might think it would be because we had fought a war with them, but this largely had the support of the people. I think mostly because the events in Hiroshima, Nagasaki shocked the daylights out of everyone. And, you know, you can joke about saying, let's bomb our enemies back into the Stone Age. But when you actually do it, and you have to live with that, it's a different story. So we made a commitment to help rebuild the Japanese economy. Keep in mind that our efforts to rebuild were like about this big compared to the Japanese effort. to get out of that mess. Within a couple of decades, Made in Japan went from being a complete joke to top of the line cars, top of the line electronics, um, top of the line fashion, even. So, certainly, these were a people determined to rebuild their economy, and they did, and good for them. Part of that economic rebuilding was the importing into the US of all kinds of Japanese consumer goods. The goods were cheap, and there were a whole bunch of companies importing them. And by the way, I keep a list, and I share it over on the Sumi's Angels Facebook page. I've probably got about 40 or 50 companies on that list. These are the names of companies that imported in the years following the Second World War. They imported from Japan to the US, and they all had their own names and so on. Some of them were very well-known companies. Lefton, for example. Lefton brought over some very high-end porcelain pieces. And when I say high-end, I mean high-end relative to Japanese imports, meaning that in the 50s and 60s, when Lefton was bringing goods in, these were things that might have gone for $5 or $10 as opposed to 50 cents to $2, which is what most of them were going for. So high end is definitely relative. Companies like Napco were bringing in really, really nice pieces. Lefton, Yukago, Otagiri. And I'm going to pull the video. I did the story of the people who founded the Otagiri company. Fascinating story. I'm going to see if I can pull the video and put up a card to that. Because it's probably worth listening to if you're not familiar with it. Some of these companies are well known to us. Many of them are not. In most cases, we will know their goods rather than know the company that imported them. For example, the beautiful little decorated porcelain perfume atomizers were brought over by a company called iRice. That's another thing I should probably mention. iRice was, I believe, Irving and Irene. Very often, the names of the companies were taken from the initials of the owners. So, A. Dart would have been Adam and Arthur. By the way, I'm not sure if it was Adam and Arthur. It was something in Arthur, A. Dart. They just combined it together. All of these companies were bringing things in that dramatically improved the quality of life for working class people in the US. Beautiful items, readily available. They were available, frankly, they were dime store items. So they were available at any dime store. And you didn't have to be rich to have beautiful figurines on your coffee table, a lovely set of china on your breakfast table. All you really needed was to go off to the store and grab some Japanese imports. Quality was another factor, though, because quality was all over the place, from extremely poor quality, hence Made in Japan had become a joke, right up to really fine pieces. The Lefton pieces, the Napco pieces, and then later the Otagiri pieces. The fact is that there was something for everybody. If you wanted a pretty little piece of porcelain, you could get anything from a little 50-cent trinket, right up to, something you might pay $10 for, but would be equivalent in quality to a $50 piece of German porcelain. It was part of the Japanese post-war rebuilding. And as I say, they did a remarkable job of it, as we all know now, given the impact they've had on many of our industries. So I've got this whole list, and I've been compiling this for a long time. It's an ongoing project. I will never complete this. I know this right now. I will die and someone else will take over the list for me. Simply because there were so many of these companies. And I started doing the list because people would ask, well, what are the better companies? Well, I can tell you what some of the better companies are, but I can't tell you all of the companies. I can't give you a list and say if this name is on it, it was imported from Japan. Because, as I say, there are so many, and I'm still compiling the list. And I do have a good 40 or 50 names on that list. And as I say, I'll never be finished with it. So, they were a feature of life in middle-class America from the period immediately following the war, right up until the 1970s. In the 1970s, you could still get really interesting, inexpensive, made-in-Japan pieces. By the 1980s, things had changed, and Japan really began to assert itself as a major player in automobiles, electronics. Those are the two that quickly come to mind, but many others. You would walk into someone's house in the 1980s and there would be a Japanese name on their television set. There would be a Japanese name on the car in their driveway, and no one was saying, made in Japan, really? So it's a great success story. But from our point of view, as bargain hunters, as thrift shop denizens, these items are gorgeous. In general, they will be very, very low price items. And I'm sure I've told you this before. If I haven't, I will tell you again. I love going into thrift stores, finding pieces that say made in Japan or made in China on the bottom. Because even though I know they're good quality, the people in the thrift stores are still with that older mindset of made in China is junk, made in Japan is junk, which is why you can get such good deals on them. All right, that is what I have for you all today. Those of you who follow the Just Chattin' series will be back at 8 o'clock this evening. For the rest of you, and by the way, watch what you want to watch. If you want to watch Just Chatting, go ahead. If you don't, don't. I am in no way offended one way or the other. Please remember, the Just Chattin' series came out of the thrifting videos because this was what a fairly significant percentage of our viewers said they wanted. But I've got no problem with this, and I know some of you sometimes write in the comments saying, well, I follow Just Chatting, but I don't follow the thrifting videos. I'm sorry. So why would you apologize? I am glad to have you show up just to look for the cat. Who cares? I'm thrilled, whatever your reason. So, if you follow Just Chatting, we'll be back at 8. If you don't, we will be back next weekend. More thrifting and projects and whatever else have you. So, slideshow on our way out, and in the meantime, have a terrific day.